Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to do a table view tutorial here. Fairly simple. I'm going to give you a little bit more than just making a table view. We're going to make it do something. We're going to make it go to another view controller where you pass some information. In this case, it's going to be a color, and it's going to end up in the second view controller. So let's get to it. Okay, we're just going to do a single view application. Just call it table view. Okay, let's go right to the storyboard, and the first thing that we're going to do is grab our table view, which is right here. Drag it on, make sure it's nice and centered up. Okay, and then we want to make sure that we are going to have our navigation controller in action here. I don't know why I did that. Okay, so this way when we pass to the next view controller, we have that nice little back button that's made for us. So that's always really nice to have. So whenever working with table views. So first thing that we want to do whenever we work with table views is make sure that we have our UITableView data source and UITableView delegate. Okay. That's a must. Absolutely need that. Okay, now let's connect our table view into our header file, call it out, and we will just call it table. Okay, and then we want to make sure that our table is connected to the data source and delegate. So control and drag right down here to data source and delegate. So very similar to picker views so far. Actually, they're very similar making picker views and table views. So now that should be it for the header view or the header file. So we're going to jump into the implementation file. So first, let's create a couple arrays. So the arrays that we're going to create are going to be first our titles. So this is going to be the strings that are called out in each table view cell, and then I'm going to create a color array, or I'm sorry, I'm just going to create a variable for color right here. For the information that we're going to pass. Okay. Now, as you can see, the Xcode isn't very happy because we need to call out a few methods to create our table view. So, first thing we want to do is actually let's fill up our arrays first. So, or just the title array. So the title array is NS array, allocate it, init with objects, and I'm just going to stick to what I showed you earlier. Red, blue, yellow. Okay. So that's all we need to do in the view did load. Okay, now for the table. So similar to the picker view, there are a couple methods that have to be called out. The first method is going to return an integer, and that integer is going to be the number of sections in the table view. So if you think about your contacts list, it's going to be listed in alphabetical order, and at each letter there's going to be a little gray bar that separates the A's from the B's from the C's. So that's going to be your section. So in this case, we're just going to return one section. Maybe I'll make a tutorial with multiple sections if somebody begs me to. So the next method is going to be, it's going to return another integer, and that is going to, we're going to say the number of rows in each section. So that's going to be how many A's, how many B's, how many C's in your contacts list, but in this case it's just going to be how many colors or how many of our color or our title array. So usually what you want to do here is return whatever the number of your array, so the title array dot count, because that's as many bits of information that you have to return. So it can't really be any more than that. Okay, now the next method is going to be where we say what we want to return in each cell. So it's going to return a UITableView cell, like I said. So it's going to be cell for row at index path. You see it pops up right there. Okay, so what it's saying is at the cell at that row, what do you want to put in that cell? So the first thing that we want to do is create a static NS string. Call this our cell identifier. So this is fairly important. Actually, it's very important when you're working with multiple table views in the same view controller. You have to make sure that you know which cell that you're going to call out. So okay, so then we are going to create a variable for a UITableView cell and just call it cell. And this is going to be tableview DQ reusable cell with identifier, and it's going to be cell identifier. So we could have just put in the string cell right there, but for this case we're going to make it clean and make sure that we have all of our variables called out first. Okay, so now we make an if statement. If not cell, okay, then we want cell. So if the cell's not complete, is what that's saying. We want the cell to be UITableView cell, allocate it, and then we want to init with style, and we'll just make it the default style right there, and with reuse identifier, cell identifier. See, that's why we make this variable. So whenever we have this cell identifier pop up, we can just type cell identifier and pops up nice there. So that's what we do there. And now we have to say what we want the text labels to be in our cell. So the first thing that we can change is the text label. So the cell dot text label dot text. Okay, it's going to equal title array, and within that array the object. So the object in that array at the index by the index path row. So meaning whichever row that we're at. So if we're at row 1, it's going to pull the first object. Row 2, blue. Row 3, yellow. So that's what we do there. And then you can also change a detail text label. So by default, there's a detail text label in the cell that we can put whatever we want. So let's just let's just make it view color. Okay, and then as the method calls out here, we have to return a UITableView cell. So that's why we have this error here. So we need to return the cell, and now it's happy. Okay, so everything should be connected. Everything's called out. So let's go ahead and run the app. Okay, now we have our table built, but when we click it, nothing's really going on. So let's go back, and we have to create another view controller. So it's going to be an Objective-C class view controller, and we're just going to call it second view controller. Make sure that it's subclass of UI view controller. Okay, create that. Drag it on down in here. And what we want to call out, so what are we going to end up passing is going to be a color. So let's make a property for that color. So it's going to be weak, non-atomic, and it's going to be a UI color, and we'll call it background color. Okay. Then let's go into here, into the implementation file for a second view controller, and synthesize the background color so that we can use it when we want to call out some code. So what we're going to do is, so what happens when we come to this view controller is we want the view to load with the background color, whatever we set this equal to. So to do that, we just go self.view.background color equals background color. Okay, so this isn't the variable that we just called out right here. This is the actual property of the view itself, and we just happen to name it the same thing. Okay, so that should be all that we have to do in these two files here. So let's go ahead and go to our main storyboard and create the view controller itself. So what we do here, okay, and we want to make sure that it knows that these are the pieces of code that it should listen to. So we have to make sure that we make it custom class second view controller. And then we have to push, because we're using a navigation controller and we want that nice back button to pop up, we want to control drag over here and push to the segue, so that way we can go back to the table view. Okay? So now we're going to go back to our header file so that we know that, so that this code knows that it can talk to this second view controller and knows that it exists. So actually, before I do anything, we see that we have this error up here, and that is because I have not created our cell identifier. So if you remember, when we put in cell here, where did that come from? Where did it come from? Well, where it should have come from is this table view. So if you go into your, let's see, where is it? Oh, I'm not clicked on the table view. The attributes inspector, we can create a prototype cell here. So here's our cell, here's the reuse identifier. So if we just type in cell, that error. Okay, so now we want to make sure that this piece of code knows that it can talk to the second view controller. So we have to call out or import the second view controller in our first view controller. So just like that. So now we can go into our implementation file, and what we're going to do here is we're going to create a method that isn't going to return anything, but it's going to let us know what to do when we select a certain row. So it's going to be void because we're not returning anything. It's going to table view, and it's going to be did select, not did deselect. So did select row at index path. Okay. So when we select, say, the first row, then we want to make sure that it knows what to do. So we're going to use a switch statement and use index path dot row as our case. So we can only have 3 cases here because we only have 3 rows that we can make. So we have row 0, 1, and 2. Okay. So what we want to do at the first row is make the color equal to red, and then blue, and then yellow. So color equals UI color red color equals UI color blue color color equals color yellow color. Okay? And then we want it to segue over to the next view controller. So what we're going to do is self perform segue with identifier, and then we're going to name our segue. We're just going to call it next, and the sender is going to be self. Okay, this may not make sense right now, but we'll make sure that it does at the end here. And then our last method that we're going to call is going to be another void method where we prepare for the segue. So this is where we're going to call out our second view controller and make sure that we set the property over here, background color, equal to whatever this color is. So to do that, we have to call our second view controller, and we're going to make a variable for it, SVC for second view controller. And this is going to be second view controller segue dot destination view controller. And then we're going to do SVC dot background. So this is the property that we created in the second view controller, and we're going to set it equal to color. Okay, so that should set this background color to whatever we clicked over here, whatever the color is set equal to over here. So now we have to make sure that our segue is called next. So what we do is go to our segue and we call it next. Okay, and that made that stinking thing go away up here. So as is, we should be able to run and everything should work perfectly. Let's hope it does. Let's find it. Here we are. Boom, there you go. There you go. There you go. So, oh, and one thing, if you did notice earlier, which I didn't when we ran it the first time, is our detail text label didn't come up. So to fix that, click on our cell, and right now we have custom style, but right now, so we can make it basic, right detail, left detail, so wherever we want to put the detail. So let's just put it on the right. So now you can see where it's actually going to come up, the title and the detail. So let's run it again. And there's red, blue, and yellow. Okay guys, I hope this helped. I hope the jumping around didn't confuse too much with the identifiers and making sure that you punch them in, but it is something that you will forget time to time, and you will have to come back and type in that cell there or name your segue so that you can make these warnings go away. But in the end, you can see we have a nice little table view that passes some information to a second view controller. Alright, later.